All right. So chapter 36 will say this. Again, we've just come out of the point of Yitzhak is buried. The two brothers are united. Everything seems to be okay. But we have two different camps. Edom and Esau are where? Mount? Seir. And what?
South.
Yeah. What mount does the Israelites get? Mount Moriah. Mount Sion. Okay? This is where they have sort of like a separate place. Mount Seir, known for natural fortifications and strength. And Mount Moriah, sacrifice, the binding of Isaac. Okay, so they're setting up two very different ideals. This genealogy is of Esau, that is Edom. Esau chose Canaanite woman for his wife. Sound familiar? Here we are, just like Ishmael, once again, choosing the wrong partner. Ada, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, Oholivama, the daughter of Anna, the daughter of Sivon the Hivi, and Basmat, Ishmael's daughter, sister of Navot. Pause. How many wives does he have?
A lot.
3. He takes 3 wives. Okay, we're going to go naughty boy. But remember, his counterpart is opposite. How many wives does he have?
Even more.
Jacob is now sitting with 2 wives and 2 concubines.
Daddy, why does it, if they had more than one wife back then, why does it make it wrong now?
It was always supposed to be the case that it was 1 man and 1 woman, just like Adam and Eve. But because of their cultural issues, and they always thought it became more acceptable. So today the world will tell you it's acceptable to live with someone before you get married. The Bible tells you it's not supposed to be that way. Okay, so God will deal with, even with people in a norm, but He will always point you back to it shouldn't have been that way. You understand? Okay. So Ada bore Esau, Eliphaz, Basmat bore Reuel, and Oholivama bore Yeush, Yaolam, and Korach. These were the sons of Esau born to him in the land of Canaan. Esau took his wives, his sons and daughters, and others in his household, his cattle and other animals, and everything else he owned which he had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went off to the country distant from his brother Jacob. For their possessions had become too great for them to live together, and the countryside through which they were traveling couldn't support so much livestock. So Esau lived in the hill country of Seir. Okay, what does that remind you of?
Lot and Abraham.
Lot and Abraham, right? Remember, it became too much. The herdsmen were quarreling, and then he says, "Where you gonna go, Lot, my boy?" And he goes, "Lush Valley, next to those dodgy towns, but it'll be fine." Ends up settling near Sodom and Gomorrah, and then in Sodom. Same separation that seems to happen here. He goes off, and he goes south, because they have so much. For someone that never received the birthright, yet Esau is still blessed. Okay, look, said he would, but not as through the promise. This is the genealogy of Esau, the father of Edom, in the hill country of Seir. The names of Esau's sons were Eliphaz, son of Ada, wife of Esau, and Reuel, son of Basmat, wife of Esau. The sons of Elisaph were Teman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, Kenaz. Timnah was the concubine of Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bore Eliphaz Amalek. The Amalekites yes, should set up a ding-ding bell, because later, remember Moses sitting on the mountain, so that's where they come from. Remember, the Amalekites attacked them as they were coming out of Egypt. Attacked them from the back. You attack the weak. Take them off and you go kidnap and sell them. Similar to Assyria, but Assyria were very strong. They attacked head on. The Amalekites were actually relatives.
Of
Esau. So think about it. Someone that's a relative that's going to sell people. Well, we're going to see that actually in the next chapter or two. These were the descendants of Ada, Esau's wife. The sons of Reuel. It's something, if you hear the word El, generally, there's God's name in there. Right, so you've got to stop and ask yourself the question. All right, why do they have God's name in it? What are they trying to say? The sons of Reuel were Nachat, Zerach, Shama, Mizra. These were the sons of Basmat, Esau's wife. There were the sons of Oholivama, the daughter of Anna, the daughter of Sivon, Esau's wife. She bore to Esau Yeush, Ya'alam, and Korach. The chieftains of the sons of Esau were the sons of Eliphaz, firstborn of Esau, and the chieftains of Teman, Omar, Sepho, Kenaz. Korach, Getam, and Amalek, these were the chieftains descended from Eliphaz in Edom and from Ada. Okay, chieftains. Does you guys have a different translation there?
Chiefs.
Chiefs. All right, so they're setting up, again, tribes and so on. The sons of Reuel, Esau's son, were the chieftains of Nachat, Zerach, Shama, and Mizra. These were the chieftains descended from Reuel and the land of Edom from Basmat, Esau's wife. The sons of Oholivama, Esau's wife, were the chieftains of Yeush, Yoalam, and Korach. These were the chieftains descended from Oholivama, the daughter of Anna, Esau's wife. These were the descendants of Esau, that is Edom. These were the chieftains. These are the descendants of Seir, the Hori, the local inhabitants. Lotan, Shoval, Sivon, Anna, Dishon, Etzer, Dishan. They were the chieftains descended from the Hori, the people of Seir in the land of Edom. The sons of Lotan were Hori and Hemam. Lotan's sister was Timnah. The sons of Shoval were Avlan, Manachat, Evol, Shepho, and Onam. The sons of Ziphon were Avia and Anna. And this is the Anna who found the hot springs in the desert while pasturing his father Ziphon's donkeys. Side note. The children of Anna were Dishon and Oholivama, the daughters of Anna. The sons of Dishon were Hemdan, Eshban, Yitran, and Kiran. The sons of Etzer were Bilhan, Zavan, and Akan. The sons of Dishan were Uz and Aran. These were the chieftains descended from the Hori, the chieftains of Lotan, Shoval, Sivon, Anna, Dishon, Etzer, and Dishan. They were the chieftains descended from the Hori by the clans in Seir. Following are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king had reigned over Israel. All right, so we had Esau moving south into Seir, but there were also a people, the Hori, that were there, and there's now this assimilation. Okay? Now all of a sudden, the next thing you see is, oh, by the way, there's kings. Is that a good thing? Why did they ask for a king in Israel?
Because all the other nations have kings.
They said like the other nations, they also wanted king.
Right, and what Samuel really took that hard. Why?
Because it was supposed to be set apart.
Okay, what does that mean?
God was supposed to be the king.
God was supposed to be the king.
Yeah.
Now, if God is now being replaced by a human, they're going, what do you want about? The Edomites were doing it long before Jacob and them. Now we can look at them and can go, wow, they had kings, they had this territory, they had this power, and look how God established them. But also at the same time, look at the decline spiritually. It's sometimes amazing to see the more stuff you have, the faster you lose Him. Okay.
Now,
So,
if you actually look at this with the events that are taking place in Israel and the Middle East now, you can see this division here that is actually,
yeah.
you know, even though Jacob and Esau sort of tried to make some sort of reconciliation,
Yeah.
there's still a major division here amongst them, and different, totally different paths. Whereas Esau and all his descendants, went and a different way.
Yeah. And the separation that happens generally has to do with one simple
Why
truth.
is my phone beeping?
There was Andres. What is the simple
Which phone
truth?
Was it on
That what causes a separation between someone like Lot and Abraham, someone like Jacob and Esau, someone like Isaac and Ishmael?
Well, they,
Possessions?
according to them, is they had too much livestock and they were arguing.
That becomes a point. But I mean, if we get to the place and we go, if we're one family and we've got so much livestock, we're going, wow, look at what God has done for us.
There isn't one person in charge. That is common. Abraham's listening to God and Lot's listening to himself.
There we start
There's
to
no
see.
leadership.
When
They've
you
got
look
different leaders, basically.
When you look at the genealogy, remember he starts off with a garden with 2 trees. And there is a separation that's caused between. Whatever fruit you eat, you're either going to be with God or you're going to be separated from him. One, if you pursue more knowledge, if you pursue more of self, if you want to become like God, i.e., you don't need anybody else. Or you cling to life and you know that you need him. And naturally, or should I say supernaturally, you're going to see the divide happen, and it starts off small. Have you ever been friends with a worldly person that when you become a believer and then all of a sudden over time the chasm starts to split? Why does that chasm split? Because you don't have any commonality anymore. You struggle to have a normal conversation because your entire foundation was built on when you were being worldly. Now all of a sudden you want to talk about God. You want to ask genuinely how the person is. And their responses are, oh, God can fix that. Are you struggling? You feel depressed. I know what you need. I don't come here with your religious stuff. Just pour me a beer and let's be friends. And then you kind of like, there seems to be this, I can't even talk to you anymore. And you start to see this divide happening because at the center of it is idolatry. Okay. Verse 32. Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom. The name of the city was Dinhava. Cities now. Remember who was the first city builder?
What was his name again?
Cain.
Cain.
Bela, he started Babylon.
Nimrod.
Nimrod.
Yeah, but it was Cain who first built the cities. Nimrod became the first ruler thereof. Okay, so now we're building cities. Now we have kings, and in the back you should hear decline, decline, decline. When Bela
I
died,
think a lot of it, sorry to interrupt,
No.
is that, Esau and his descendants, they probably must have told their descendants, the same as now, is that this brother of mine, he actually cheated me, he took my word, so, so they all had, as the generations came, there wasn't any reconciliation, they all sort of knew that they'd stolen our birthright,
Yeah.
And I think that's still the same thing today. That's why a lot of the Palestinians get taught to hate the Jews because they believe that they're the chosen people and they not.
Yeah.
And they are saying, no, we're the chosen. What's strange to me is though that Esau also had 12 sons.
Yes. No, Ishmael.
So, they want to compare, the 12 and the 12 and that, but But obviously Allah and all of that Muslim stuff only started about 600 years ago.
Yeah. No, yeah, very different. We just replaced the idols so that we can get what we want, right?
Isn't this just like us? Because I hear you say, no, when I use charcoal, it makes a mess. And I said, no, it does not make a mess. You make the mess by using that. So really, they should have just kept away from cooking lentils and eaten meat. Not being vegan.
Yeah, there we go.
That was the downfall.
Yeah.
It was the lentils.
Lentils. Who does that?
If it was lentils.
Yeah, everybody would have been happy if there was a sculpture, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom. The name of his city was Dinhava. When Bela died, Yovav, the son of Zerach from Bozrah, reigned in his place. When Yovav died, Husham from the land of Temani reigned in his place. When Husham died, Hadad, the son of Bedad, who killed Midian in the field of Moab, reigned in his place. And the name of the city was Avid. So, what do we see? Slowly, kingship after kingship after kingship. We're seeing cities being built, we're seeing separation, and now we're seeing war or murder. When Hadad died, Samla of Masrekah reigned in his place. When Samla died, Shaul of Rehovot by the river reigned in his place. When Shaul died, Baal Hanan. So now all of a sudden we've got a Baal in there. Now remember, generally that denotes idolatry. Baal means the master of, or could also mean husband. So now, if this is not the same betrothal that God will have with his people, this will be betrothal to something else. The son of Akbor died in his place. When Baal Hanan died, Hadar reigned in his place. The name of the city was Pa'u, and his wife's name was Me'etavel, the daughter of Matred, the daughter of Mezahav. These are the names of the chieftains descended from Esau according to their clans, places, and names. The chieftains of Timnah: Alva, Yetet, Olivama, Ela, Pinon, Kenaz, Teman, Mibsar, Magdiel, and Iram. These were the chieftains of Edom according to their settlements in the land they owned. This is Esau, the father of Edom. And we get a whole bunch of genealogy of what they're going to be facing, or what they did face near the end. The separation of two brothers, again separating as much as Ishmael left Isaac, Abraham and Lot. One is always going to fall into idolatry because we're following those two trees. Okay. Let's take our break and then we can jump into the next set. Okay. So Jacob continued living in a land where his father had lived as a foreigner in the land of Canaan. Okay, so we get back and he is establishing where?
In a foreign land.
In a foreign land.
Canaan.
Why is he in Canaan?
That's where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were promised that land.
Right, okay, so Jacob is focusing on covenantal promises, okay, so he's setting himself in that land. This is the history of Jacob. When Joseph was 17 years old, now I want you to try and get yourself mindset-wise. Joseph was a good few years after Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah.
The other 10.
So all of these other guys should probably be around what age?
30.
30, 40s. I think they're probably be pushing a little bit on.
Okay.
And you've got 17-year-old Joseph.
Ankle biter.
He used to pasture the flock with his brothers even though he was still a boy. Once when he was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah. All right, look how that's phrased. Remember, we have in this camp contention because of what? Favoritism. You love that one, now you're the son of Bilhah, you're the son of Zilpah, you're the son of Leah, and oh, you're the son of the favorite wife. Okay? His father's wives, he had brought a bad report about them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph the most of all of his children. Okay, so what do we see set up here? Again. Okay, so now it's not just the favorite wife, it's the favorite son of the favorite wife, and he's a lot younger than everybody else, and he's got no problem tattletelling. Because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a long sleeve robe. Your translation might say a
Long clear.
okay,
Of many colors.
yeah,
Orient robe.
Orient.
Orient.
ornate,
Ornate.
ornate robe. Basically, Yeah, ornate. So something beautiful.
Yeah.
Something that's sets you apart. Okay, so now we normally have like Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat, right? This is a coat that kind of shows the intention of his father. This coat sets him apart as someone who's going to receive the blessing. He is the favorite.
Long sleeve. How much work you going to do in a long sleeve garment? You're not a worker.
Yeah, he's the guy who's going to inherit. This is when set up. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they began to hate him and reached the point where they couldn't even talk to him in a civil manner. Okay, now look at how this thing is breakdown. Why did they hate him?
Because
They wanted favor from their father.
Okay, so give me the motivation. You're Reuben or Simeon or whatever. You're looking at this guy, and we hate him because of what?
Jealousy.
Jealousy. Why am I not good enough? What has he done more? This is just like you treated my mom. Now think about it. Here or not, they're seeking affirmation. They're seeking that want to be loved. Where do we normally get that from? Right. We make the mistake of trying to get that from our parents. And to a state, God is using a parent to reflect that love. To the point of someone saying to me, I'm proud of you. You're good enough. Look at you. Okay? There's that affirmation that needs to come from a parent. But there's the shift that need to, as they enter into adulthood, where I need to be able to look up and go, this is not coming from my parents, this is coming from my God. And because there are many people that grow up without parents. So now can we walk around and we can go, oh, no one loves me, no one ever wanted me, or can I go, God created me, chose me for himself, wanted me for himself. And that's the affirmation you want to instill even in your kids that you have, even if you are affirming them. Right? I don't want Jaden and Rachel to look to me and go, am I good enough? I want you to go to God and say, Father, I know I'm good enough because. What is that because? How do I measure God's love or affirmation for me as a person?
Did Yeshua die for you?
That's bottom line. If I was good enough for Messiah to die for me, that means God went out of his way to squeeze himself into time and space to deal with my sin that separated me from him just so that he could have me in his kingdom.
Yeah.
There's so many people out in the world looking for someone to affirm them, to love them the way they want to be loved, and they completely ignore the way God is loving them. Now, have you ever seen this being carried out in different homes in a marriage? When I come into the marriage and I'm saying, I want my wife to complete me. Yeah, the problem is that you're not coming in whole. You're coming in with an expectation.
Yeah, that question makes me happy.
Yes, and then I go, oh, that's beautiful, and it's like this. But the issue is, unless you come into a marriage whole, it's going to be very difficult because you're broken, and broken things cut things. So now I'm sitting there in this response, looking for you to reaffirm me the way I need to be reaffirmed, and yet another person really can't give me that affirmation. You're looking at that. These kids are starving for that affection, for that moment. And again, it also needs to teach us as parents, favoritism is a dangerous thing. I can look at my children and I can say, you know what, they're two very different kids. And I love them equally for different reasons. Right? If I want absolute craziness in a jar, I'll look at Rachel. If I want to look at this deep, sort of soft compassion, I look to Jaden. And they are chalk and cheese.
Good. Jaden and Rachel. Put the little.
Yeah, exactly that. But I need to learn to appreciate the differences between the two. Just like God will look at each and every one of us and go, listen, I'm not worried about the spiritual gifts that Andre has or Uncle Dal has or Auntie Ange has. I need to go, God created me with this unique gifting for a purpose, and Andre and Uncle Dal for different. and for Renee for different, for Willem for different. We're all the same. We all have been affirmed in that. Okay? But I want to show you, look at this. They loved him more. He loved him more and began to hate him and reached the point that they couldn't even talk to him. Do you think there's unforgiveness in this family?
Yep.
I think there's a father that's not in charge of anything.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't even talk to each other in a civil manner. What is your table looking like?
Yeah, but that's the thing, where you have that Jacob and Israel moment where that fluctuates, right? I love you because of what you can give me, or I love you because I love you. And then on the other side of things, I don't love you because God loves you. Okay? So look at how unforgiveness has a tendency to play its part in this household. Unforgiveness leads down to hate, leads down to we can't even communicate. I can't even think of you and not be upset. Now, because we can, and we've spoken a lot about this before, when you thought of someone who had done you wrong and you get that knot in your stomach, is it affecting the other person?
No,
No, they're completely oblivious. They don't know. They don't care.
they're carrying on with their lives.
They're doing their thing. What it is it's affecting me. Now, if I learn to let that go, surrender that person to God, saying, Father, you have to deal with it. I need to be able to be, if I think of that person or see that person, can I be okay? Now, what happens if that person is your spouse or your son or your daughter or whatever, and now all of a sudden we have a communication barrier? I can't even talk to you. I can't even think of you. Remember, this is a godly household.
Jesus says in Matthew, a kingdom divided by itself can't stand. And I guess a family divided by itself can't stand either.
Yeah. Yeah. And if, again, Yeshua would say that, place that emphasis on things and saying, if your brother has something against you, leave your offering at the altar, go and make right, and then you come back. You know, this is where the seed of Messiah is going to come from, through this lineage. This is the tribes of Israel. These are the people that are going to be called a kingdom of priests. And they can't even talk. All because Daddy loved her more and didn't love my mom or treat her the same. Now, okay? Maybe something to go and think about. Maybe something in your heart or in your situation or something along those lines where you're sitting there holding on to something like this. This is going to lead these sons down a road where they shouldn't be. Okay? To make matters worse, not only does Daddy give him a fancy coat, Joseph had a dream which he told his brothers. Who gave him the dream? Hashem, God, right? So God gives him this dream. Oh no. Little fancy pants now is also apparently being favored by God too.
Yeah.
Can we just catch a break?
Will we ever be good enough?
Right. But this is the simple reality. You were already that which you have been promised. You're part of the covenant. You're part of the process. You're part of this blessing. Of all the earth, surely that should be enough. If I focus on that, then I can kind of shift away from what God's doing with that person. Even in the disciples, 12 again, they had a struggle. Remember, who was the favorite? John, the one whom he loved. Remember, Peter, after denying Christ at the end of John 21, is like, yeah, but what about him? What I'm going to do with him is not your concern. I need you to do this. Let me deal with John separately. Now, I'm sure there is an absolute link between the 12 sons, i.e. the 12 tribes and their personalities, and the 12 disciples. I just don't have enough information of the 12 disciples to be able to make that link in the text. But yeah, we see this favoritism thing where Yeshua corrects it and says, I need you to focus on this. I love you too, Peter. You've gotten it wrong a few times, it's okay, but I choose you anyway. Right? And if he can do that for Peter, he can do that for us. So, Joseph has a dream, and he told his brothers that made them hate him all the more. He said to them, listen while I tell you about this dream of mine. We were tying up bundles of wheat in the field, then suddenly my bundle got up by itself, stood upright. Then your bundles came, gathered around mine, and prostrated themselves before it. His brothers retorted, yes, you will certainly be our king. You'll do a great job of bossing us around. And they hated him still more for his dreams and for what he said. Now listen closely to the dream. What was it about? Bundles of wheat. So the first dream has got something to do with food. Okay, this is prophetic. The other bundles are going to come up and they're going to bow down to him. We're going to see this fulfilled in chapters 40 and onwards. They're going to come to Joseph seeking food. And they will bow down to him, even though they didn't recognize him. But notice something here. What happened to his bundle? We were tying up bundles of wheat, and then suddenly my bundle got up by? This bundle stood up. Could that bundle stand up all by itself? No, someone had to lift it up. Joseph thinks, oh, look at me, all bound down to me. Look at where you place the emphasis. It's about time you guys just acknowledge my awesomeness, and how are you going to have to bow down to me?
You have to be tired. You have to be tired also.
Yes.
Otherwise you'll flop
Yeah, I see
over.
my son doing that.
Yeah.
AJ, yeah.
At this moment, yeah.
Yeah, man, coming up to you and telling you this is how it's going to be.
Yeah, that is the conversation every day, the whole day.
So now you kind of put yourself with Reuben probably sitting there looking at him going, listen, 17-year-old boy. So we're setting up two different things here. The other brothers are struggling with what?
Jealousy.
Unforgiveness, and which leads to hate. It's the unforgiveness part that's really leading them down this road. You overlooked my mom. Now you're favoriting him more. You're treating us just like that.
Yeah.
The second part is, look at Joseph. What is his problem?
Well,
Nope.
no, he is behaving like his father treats him.
That
I'm
neck.
better than you. It is all about me, and you can't even take me on because I'm just going to Daddy. Deal with this
Daddy.
problem.
Huh. To
And
the-
he's elevated himself anyway because of Daddy's worth on him.
Right.
He's
Okay.
living the dream.
Yes. And he could go, listen, guys, I'm
It's out of my hands.
it's out of my hands. Or he could literally go up to his brothers and go, I know I don't deserve this. He could come up to there and he can actually help his brothers accept this role, but he doesn't. He dives right into it head first. So God is going to lift him up, but Joseph is all about everybody will bow down.
Because that's how people treat him.
Okay, so he's got an arrogant problem. He had another dream, which he told his brothers, here I've had another dream. You can hear the tone already. And there were the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars prostrating themselves before me. He told his father too. So now this is just going not just, hey, you Oaks, you guys are going to bow down. Now I go to daddy and mommy and tell them the same. This is a patriarchal society. He goes, as well as his brothers, but his father rebuked him. He says, what is this dream you have had? Do you really expect me, your mother, and your brothers to come and prostrate ourselves before you on the ground? His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept his matter in his mind. Right, so this tells us two things. Interesting thing. He refers to him, says the sun and the moon. The interpretation is given in the text. Who are the sun and the moon? The parents. He goes, me and your mother. Who was Joseph's mother?
Rachel, was she still alive?
No, she died.
Oh, it's good. So Benjamin is there. So the 11 other brothers, yeah.
So
Okay.
now he's actually looking at what Joseph has him. Did she die? I'm sure she did. Yes, she did. No,
She is. I don't know
I'm
if they can
pretty
move
sure.
around. They can bring it in later.
no, I'm sure that she's no,
Or
no.
the 11
Yeah,
brothers
Yeah.
now.
Rachel.
She's already died.
Okay, so she's dead.
She's already
So
died.
who's
We-
his mother down
She's now, for the first sort of instance, it seems like he's actually referring to Leah as his mother. So she's actually taken up the status. Interesting side note.
And now it's their mother.
Uh-huh.
Now
She's
out
not
there.
been accepted. So you imagine the push-pull between him going, oh, really, you? You guys will bow down to me. All right? We also see this prophetically popping up again. Revelations 12. Go to Revelations 12.
The lady with the
I can't remember. It says, now a great sign in heaven, now it was seen in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun under her feet, the moon, and her crown had 12 stars. Okay? This is a picture of Israel. She was pregnant and about to give birth, and she screamed in the agony of labor. Another sign in heaven had been, there had been a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, Daniel problems, and on its heads were 7 royal crowns. The tail swept a third of the stars of heaven and threw them down to the earth. It stood in front of the woman about to give birth so that it might devour the child the moment it was born. She gave birth to a son, a male child, who the one who will rule all the nations with a staff of iron. Psalm 2. So, out of Israel will come the Messiah, and Satan will try and the next section try and eat him. But her child was snatched up by God and his throne, and she fled to the desert for a place prepared for her. Okay, so Yeshua, in his birth, was there someone who wanted to kill him? Picture of Herod. Okay, so Revelations 12, using different imagery, links to completely different sections of the text. Okay, let's go back to Genesis. So, I want you to pay careful note here to the way Jacob responds. He rebukes him, but keeps the matter in mind. This is something I think that we need to learn. There might come a person that'll give you a word and you don't know them. And what do we do with it? Do we throw it away? Or do we live our life according to it, or do we park it and wait until we see that God affirms it?
We wait and see.
Right, you take it, you park it, you process it, and we go, okay, if this is what God is going to do, He will do it. If it doesn't come to pass, then it wasn't of God, right? Remember the testimony of a prophet, Deuteronomy 13, or the test of a prophet, if they say something and it doesn't come to pass. I did not send that person. Okay, so we have to be able to learn to discern. Just like when you test a teacher or anything else, someone else comes up to you and goes, hey, I've been sent by God. How are you going to know? Well, you've got to wait and you've got to test the fruit. This is why YouTube is so much fun, because everybody can climb on there. We can start up a channel and you don't know the fruit of the guy. All you're doing is trying to process what he's telling you. All right? You don't know what his family life is like. You don't know if he's godly really behind the scenes. You don't know anything. You've got to kind of just go and process. And you've got to see exactly what's spotting. Okay? With people, it takes time to test the fruit. I expect you to test the fruit. And we need to be continually testing our fruit to making sure that it is good in God's sight. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that. It's not me saying that you're not, or you are, or you saying I'm not who I are. I have to be comfortable enough in my calling to be able to stand up to in front of a group of people who don't know me from a bar of soap and still be able to teach. Just like in your giftings, however you operate, you need to be confident in that, because God is the one who has called you to operate that way, whether they recognize it or not. It is God who is the one who will affirm you. We don't get to have a big head about it. We don't get to act like Joseph, but Joseph will be used. He just needs to be taught a lesson first. So sometimes when we go through stuff, it might be that we are in one way, shape, or form, and I'm not saying it always is, we might be acting like Joseph. Okay? After this, when he and his brothers had gone to pasture their father's sheep in Shechem, now we're back in Shechem, Israel asked Joseph, aren't your brothers pasturing the sheep in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them. He answered, here I am. He said to him, go now and see whether things are going well with your brothers and with the sheep, and bring word back to me. Now that phrase really, all right, two things we have to focus on there. One, he is not the one sitting out pasturing the flocks, right?
Yeah.
Fancy Pants is sitting there waiting to go there and check up on them and come back and tell me what's going on. One. Two, those words sound very similar to another story. David, who was out shepherding the fields, comes in. His brothers are out to war. He says, go take some stuff, go out and see them, and come back and tell me, is it going well with them? All right, so we have an interesting little link here. Yosef is being sent out to go and bring back a report. But his report is focused on what? What do you think his intention is? Right, he's going to go and sort out what's going on there, and him and all of his authority. But when he goes, we're going to find that he doesn't really find him in the place he expected him. With David, he goes out, he knows exactly where they are, and when he gets there, he finds something else that he's not expecting. What did David find that wasn't really there, or wasn't to be expected?
Them cowering from
Them chilling over there while this giant Goliath is sitting over there cursing their gods. And then we get different responses, yeah? Okay, look at how, keep this in the back of your mind, how, you remember how David's brothers responded to him? What do you want here? Yeah, get out of here, you little snotbag. Paraphrase version. Listen to the response again of Joseph. So he sent them away to Hebron Valley, and he went to Shechem, where a man found him wandering around in the countryside. And the man asked him, what are you looking for? I'm looking for my brothers. He answered, tell me please where they are pasturing the sheep. The man said, they left here because I heard them say, let's go to Dothan. Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. They spotted him at a distance, and before he had arrived where they were, they had already plotted to kill him. So again, as we get sent out to brothers, the reflection of the brothers is, we actually don't want you anywhere near us. Similar reality. David was not considered good enough. Joseph thought he was good enough, but his brothers thought he was not. It's a similar, it's an interesting parallel, something maybe to think about. Now, how far is Dothan away from Shechem? Yeah, about 15 or 17 miles away.
How long did they take to walk?
Skapen moet ver gaan eten.
Apparently it's 50 from Hebron to Shechem. So it's in total is 1,600 kilometers according to this.
No,
No, 65 miles.
times 1.6. No, yeah, 65, 1,
Oh, 1 mile is 1.6.
yes.
So it's 104 kilometers
Oh, glory me, dis nie.
So he went from Hebron to Shechem, from Shechem to Dothan.
Yeah, that's
Dis vers is
Hebron to Shechem is far enough.
Dis van hier af.
It's the length
George,
of
Baie toe en
George is
half
102 kilos.
More than 100 kilometers.
It's more, yeah. But he's gone for a long little walk to go look. And then he's wandering around the countryside. Can you imagine getting there?
Where are you? Where am I?
And he goes, oh no, they went to Dothan. Now that's also an interesting study. If you might want to mark that down in your notes, maybe it's homework. Go figure out what else happened at Dothan. All right? He goes in and then they see him coming and then they go, let's kill him. What gave him away?
His
His
cloak.
jacket.
Yes, his fancy cloak. They said to each other, look, this dreamer is coming. Not this mommy's favorite or mommy's boy or daddy's boy or not. They are being now, because of that, and forgiveness is going to hate, and now it's being shifted onto God's calling on his life. Now all of a sudden they don't like you because you're a favorite, but now because God is choosing to use you, now we're going to play against that. So come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these water cisterns here. That hate is now festered and going to lead to action. Then we'll say some wild animal devoured him. We'll see then what becomes of his dreams. But when Reuben heard this, he saved him from being destroyed by them, and he said, we shouldn't take his life. Don't shed blood. Reuben added, throw him into a cistern where in the wilds, but don't lay hands on him yourselves. He intended to rescue them from them later and restore him to his father. Now, why would Reuben do this? Go against the norm.
You get brownie points being the firstborn rescuing the favorite.
Right. And why did he need the brownie points?
Because he wasn't so sure of his inheritance, was he?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that he gets the blessing.
He was
What-
also most naughty.
Had he been naughty already?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, he had been naughty.
Remember, he
Still trying
went
to get his inheritance.
and there was the concubine, and then he went to go lay with his father's concubine, and then that was you're out the birthright blessing. So now, how do I save him? I lost my mind for a little bit. I was really angry at my dad because of what you keep on doing to my mom. And now he's kind of going, okay, I was wrong. So we're seeing some repentance, some remorse from Reuben. So it was when Joseph arrived to be with his brothers, they stripped off his robe, the long sleeve robe he was wearing, and took him and threw him into a cistern. The cistern was empty without any water in it. Then they sat down to eat their meal. But as they looked up, they saw in front of them a caravan of Ishmaelites, coming from Gilead, their camels loaded with aromatic gum, healing resin, opium, on their way down to Egypt. So they become traders. Judah said to his brothers, what advantage is it to us if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? So who comes up with a good idea to sell him? Judah. Pay attention, he's going to come up again later. Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelim instead of putting him to death with our own hands. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh. His brothers paid attention to him, so when the Midianim, the merchants, passed by, they drew and lifted up Joseph out the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels to the Ishmaelim, who took Joseph on to Egypt. Reuben returned to the cistern, and upon seeing that Joseph wasn't in it, tore his clothes in mourning. He returned to his brothers and said, the boy isn't here. Where can I go now? He's responsible. He's the oldest. They took Joseph's robe. Okay, before I get there. Let's look at this from a prophecy standpoint. The father sends his son to go check on his brothers. His brothers remove his robe, lower him into a pit, and betray him for shekels. Who am I talking about? Judas sold Yeshua. Remember when he was about to be going through his interview process, his fake trials, didn't they cast lots for his garment? So they took off his garment, lowered him into a pit. Where did Yeshua get lowered into a pit?
When he went down to Sheol.
Not in that sense.
Not in that sense.
Here's an interesting thing. When you go to, they did an archaeological excavation. The church is called Saint Peter el Gallicantu. It's actually an excavation over what they believe Caiaphas' house was. When they excavated Caiaphas the high priest, remember he was back and forth, Caiaphas, Ananias, Pontius, Herod, they found that there was an empty cistern in his house, and they believed that Yeshua was lowered into the pit, and he was kept there after being beaten for a while before they pulled him out, and then they took him off to Pontius.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So it seems to be very literal in the way this Joseph story plays out. Is I want you to hear Yeshua. Okay. Now, they took Joseph's robe, killed a goat, a male goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. Then they sent the long sleeve robe and brought it to their father, saying, "We found this. Do you know it, if it is your son's robe or not?" Not our brother's robe, your son's. He recognized it and cried, "It's my son's robe. Some wild animal has torn Joseph to pieces and eaten him." Jacob tore his clothes, putting sackcloth around his waist, mourned his son for many days. Though all his sons and daughters tried to comfort him, he refused all consolation, saying, "No, I will go down to the grave to my son mourning." And his father wept for him. So, he gets betrayed, he gets lowered into a pit. Deception, take two. All right, before I get to deception, take two. What is the response of both Reuben and Jacob? They tear their clothes and mourn. Remember the curtain tore? From the top to the bottom. All right. So we see mourning of two parts, the father and of some people. Okay, represented by Reuben. Same thing with maybe the disciples, John and so on, watching the rabbi being crucified. Okay. Second thing we need to focus on, the deception. Deception times two. How did Jacob deceive Isaac?
Put on clothes.
Yeah. The hair.
Put on hairy.
Put on hair.
Brought him food.
Right.
Put on hairy and changed his hair.
Sorry. So, the deception of Jacob paralleled with the deception of Isaac. Okay? In both cases, a goat was used.
Yeah.
One was used to make food, this one is used to get the blood. In both cases, clothing was used. Okay? In both cases, or we can say it this way, the deception of Jacob, he was deceived by his son, and the deception of Isaac, the same thing. And there was one more that I was just sitting there on the tip of my tongue. What other parallels can you think of? Both used what they could see and what they didn't see, right? So he couldn't see that it was his son in a thing, Isaac, because his eyesight was bad, and this one he looked and he saw, and that was his deception. They trusted in what they could or couldn't see. Okay, if you can't think of anything, that's fine. Just understand. The deception, as Jacob deceived his father, his sons are now deceiving him. Just like when Abraham was fearful that they were going to take Sarai, Isaac was fearful that they were going to take Rebekah. We see the same sort of thing that we learn, because we're not learning to trust in God. We're not learning that deception or deceiving is fine. We're not learning that favoritism is a problem. And we're going to kind of get this whole turmoil problem that goes around. Okay, so how does that help us today? How does that affect you?
So you deceive your parents, so you will be deceived as well.
It comes with sins of the father.
And this becomes where we get stuck in the idea of generational curses. Okay, we have to be careful. Those things will come around again. You practice what you see. Monkey see, monkey do. That which was in your house is your norm. Here's where we can hold on to the blood of Christ as well as the Ruach HaKodesh. Your norm now is not your norm then. God has the power to break the cycle of bad behavior. You notice how some people can go, two children can come out the house and go in two very opposite directions. And you can go, what's the difference? They did exactly the same thing, they had the same experiences, they had the same household. One makes an active choice not to pursue, can I say, the brokenness, and the other one makes an active choice to kind of go, well, this is as good as it gets. Somewhere in the midst of that, if your kids can see how Christ kind of separates that and breaks it down, and I can look at and learn from my parents, and I can see now where they went wrong because maybe they weren't as focused as what they should be on the book. So our household is so completely different to what any of us grew up in. And our kids, however, they're coming up and they go, this is normal. And when we talk about our childhood, oh boy, that normal and this normal are very different. Okay, so when we see this thing sort of playing out, it is if we just, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. We keep bringing that same seed over. Okay, verse 36, in Egypt, the Midianim sold Joseph to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, a captain of the guard.
They don't say for how much,
No, it would be, well, they sold, well, it was for 20 shekels.
No, that was the first time he was
Yes.
sold.
So
And
they
they made a profit and sold him for 30.
It's very possible.
I
It's
mean,
very
you're
possible.
in the trade business.
Yes,
Then you've got the 30-30.
yeah, but it doesn't really tell us.
No.
Definitely alluded to, I would imagine. Okay, now Potiphar, captain of the bodyguard, or it could be in Hebrew, captain of the executioners. So this was a guy who was in charge of the royal prison, which should tell you something. Okay, Joseph's going to get thrown into prison. Is it perhaps that he goes to the prison of the same guy who was in charge of the household? We'll get to that. Are you guys good? Can we carry on?
A reason.
I think I want to go now. So
Yeah. It was at that time that Judah went off from his brothers and settled near a man named Hira who was an Adulami. Okay, so here we go. Judah is he's gotten to the place where he believes separation is the best thing. And there Judah saw one of the daughters of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. Interesting. So Judah decides he wants to do what? Marry her. And he took her and he slept with her, and she conceived and had a son who he named She conceived again and had a son, and she called him Onan. Then she conceived yet again and had a son whom she called Shelah, and he was in Kesiv when she gave birth to him. Judah took a wife for his firstborn. Her name was Tamar. But Yehuda's firstborn, was evil from Adonai's perspective. Pause. When's the last time you heard that? Well, Noah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Now, if you've got to think about how far we've come from Noah's time, there was nothing good. We have had Esau, we've had Ishmael, we've had a whole bunch of brokenness, and here, for like the first time in a long time, he goes, comma. So Adonai killed him. Now, it's not often we see that sort of response. Right? We see Nadav and Abihu being struck down because they brought in strange fire, but this seems to be more like a Noah response. There is nothing good in him. So he ends him. Now you've got to stop and you've got to ask yourself. Now remember, this is the same God who's slow to anger, full of compassion and grace, who sent his son to die for him. What did this guy do that was so against?
You can't imagine it.
No. This is a big thing. And let me remind you, this is from the tribe of Judah.
Yeah.
Out of here will come men like
So
David,
that was like
will come Messiah. And these, his sons, the first ones, there's nothing good. But I'll remind you, he married a Canaanite. Okay? Judah said to Onan, "Go and sleep with your brother's wife, perform the duty of your husband's brother to her, preserve your brother's line of descent." Right. In Torah, this will become an instruction. It's called Levirate marriage. The purpose of it is now you have this woman, to preserve your brother's line, thus keeping his inheritance, his land, everything about him. His name will live on. You will go, you will lie with her. If she conceives, then it's the children's responsibility later to look after her, thus also protecting her. Okay? So it's to build her up as well as to preserve the line. It's a strange concept for us now. Okay? Every time we discuss this, people normally start immediately thinking of who their brother-in-laws and sister-in-laws are and thinking, But this process, again, was in a time and culture, okay? It was to protect to preserve the rights of the wife as much as the inheritance thereof, okay? However, Onan knew that the child would not count as his. That's his motivation for what comes next. It's not mine. I don't get the benefit of this. So whenever he had intercourse with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground so as not to give his brother an offspring. So he would do the deed, take all the fun, and take no responsibility. What he did was evil from Adonai's perspective. So he killed him too.
What he did is evil in Adonai's sight.
All right.
Taking advantage of a woman other than for childbearing is evil in Adonai's sight.
100%.
Is that where it comes in julle moet vir die weduwees en sorg?
Well, yes and no.
Yes.
Well, remember, it's the widow and the orphan are always on God's heart that you have to take care of because they don't have anybody else that can take care of them. But in this instance, it's about the brother and the lineage and so on. And he's just, again, trying to get the benefits without the responsibility. Okay? Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, "Stay a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up." For he thought, I don't want him to die too, like his brothers. So his immediate response is, she must have done something. I can't leave my baby with them. Then what's going to happen next? It looks like he's focusing on her instead of Adonai. So Tamar went and lived at home with her father. In due time, Shua's daughter, the wife of Judah, died. After Judah had been comforted, he went up to be with the sheep shearers in Timnah, he and his friends Hirah the Adulami. Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law has gone up to Timnah to shear his sheep." So she took her widow's clothes, completely covered her face with her veil, and sat at the entrance of En-Naim, which is on the way to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah had grown up, but she still had not been given to him as his wife. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute because she had covered her face. All right, so now think about this. This is the son of Jacob. He's walking around after being in the land of Canaan for a while. He sees a prostitute, which is, again, odd. The wording that they would use in Hebrew that they're going to say it, refer to a little bit later as a temple prostitute. So it's more of a case of cultic worship. Okay, but this was part of the fertility cult thing. It was part and parcel for the times, especially in Canaan. So, you're a good God-fearing guy. What should your response be?
Walk circles around her.
Alright. So he went over to her where she was sitting and said, not realizing that she was his daughter-in-law, "Come, let me sleep with you," she answered. "What will you pay to sleep with me?" And he said, "I will give you a kid from the flock of goats." She said, "Will you give me something as a guarantee until you send it?" He answered, "What should I give you as a guarantee?" She said, "Your seal with its cord and your staff you're carrying in your hand." What does a seal represent? Family name. What does a staff represent? Or authority. So it is the deception of a goat and also a
Our
veil.
clothing very differently. Knuckle now with what?
Who else was deceived with the veil? Jacob with who? Right, so that again this veil becomes part of a deception. So he gave them to her, then he went and slept with her, and she conceived by him. That which you promised to do through your sons, you didn't do, so now the responsibility will fall upon the father to preserve the line. She got up and went away, took off her veil, and put on her widow's clothes. Judah sent the kid with his friend Adulami to receive the guarantee items back from the woman, but he couldn't find her. He asked the people near where she had been, "Where is the prostitute," temple prostitute, "who was on the road at Enaim?" But they answered, "There hasn't been any prostitute here." So he returned to Judah and said, "I couldn't find her." Also the people there said, "There hasn't been any prostitute here." Judah said, "All right, let's keep the things, or let her keep the things, so that we won't be publicly shamed. I sent the kid, but you didn't find her." About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has been acting like a harlot. Moreover, she's pregnant as a result of her prostitution." Gossip. Judah said, "Bring her out, let her be burnt alive." Now this guy has got no problem picking up a temple prostitute, and then he goes to double standard on the other side. Again, Judah, praise, lineage of kings. When she was brought out, she sent this message to her father-in-law, "I am pregnant by the man to whom these things belong. Determine, I beg you, whose are these? The signet, the cord, and the staff." When Judah acknowledged owning to him, he said, "She is more righteous than I, because I didn't let her become the wife of my son Shelah, and he never slept with her again."
What's the cord?
They believe that the cord wrapped the seal around her, carried around a necklace, not necessarily like a signet ring in some medieval. No. When she went into labor, it became evident that she was going to have twins. As she was in labor, one of them put out his hand, and the midwife took his hand and tied a scarlet thread on it, saying, "This one came out first." But then he withdrew his hand, and his brother came out. So she said, "How did you manage to break out first?" Therefore his name was Peretz, breaking out. Then out came his brother with the scarlet thread on his hand, and he was given the name Zerach, which means scarlet. Peretz, of which, out of the two brothers, who did Joshua come from? Peretz. And that's King David's line. The one that's, yes, the one who was breaking out, the one who who brings breakthrough, in other words, yes.
Normally they get the firstborn is cheated or cheats himself. And the second is elevated, and now it's done at birth.
Yes. It's like, it's me. No, it's
No,
not.
and remember, Israel means grab the hill.
Yes.
Remember, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
straight, yeah.
So
No,
that-
Jacob.
Jacob went to Israel, but it meant Jacob was grab the hill.
Yes.
Grabbing things.
We see the wrestling match that takes place that's going on.
Me first.
You don't even hear about poor Zerach ever again.
Not much.
a mention.
Mm.
Just as well, because can you imagine the trouble then?
Different family issues. All right.
Yeah.
Are you guys okay to carry on?
Scarlet thread Rahab, eh?
Yes.
Scarlet thread Rahab.
Well, let's see, how many hours have I been deriving? 39 will say Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, the officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him from the Ishmaelim who had brought him there. Adonai was with Joseph, and he became wealthy while he was in the house of the master of his Egyptian. All right, so again, the blessing on Joseph, everything he touches is good. His master saw how Adonai was with him and how Adonai prospered everything he did. Who does that sound like to you?
Isaac.
Yeah.
Remember,
Who
Jacob
went
was
to
in
Jacob
whose?
and Laban.
Yeah, right. So Laban recognized God's blessing on Jacob,
Okay,
right?
now, do they recognize it?
Well, that's
Because
it.
everybody else recognizes it on you. Sometimes you're the last one
Yes.
to see it or to know it. You say, you do that. Yeah, actually I do. You know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you
Recognize
do
it in
you
yourself.
acknowledge the favor of God?
Most people, I don't think so. If you're doing your work, you probably are not too
To have
focused on it.
a normal day and have a dip and come out, that's it. The mercy was on you. You have the favor of God. That's it. You know,
Yeah.
we want the like, you know, more,
Yes.
more.
And we miss him in a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, something to think about. Says, his master saw how Adonai was with him, that Adonai prospered everything he did. Yosef pleased him as he served him, and his master appointed him manager of the household, and he trusted him all with his possessions to Joseph. So here we are, take 2. Let's see what he does with it. From the time he appointed him manager of his household and all his possessions, Adonai blessed the Egyptian's household for Joseph's sake. Now, isn't that something? He blessed the household again for Joseph's sake, just like he blessed Laban for the sake of Jacob. Where you go to work, where you get up, whatever you do, whatever interactions you do, you carry the blessing that spills over to other people. Adonai's blessing was on all that he owned, whether it was in the house or in the field, so he left all his possessions in Joseph's care. And because he had him, he paid no attention to his affairs except the food he ate. Basically, you run everything, I'm just going to relax. Now Joseph was well built and handsome as well. Favored of God, favorite son, well built and handsome.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
It's starting to make us jealous. No wonder. Eh?
You gotta sit there. Can you imagine his brothers? Just give me a break. This guy,
And he's younger than us.
you know. Joseph's easy to look at and go,
The guy's got
Really?
everything.
yeah. But again, focusing on other people, not focusing on yourself, is a problem. In time, the day came when his master's wife took a look at Joseph and said, "Sleep with me." But refused, saying to my master's wife, listen to the response. "Look, because my master was with me, he doesn't know what's going on in his house. He has put all his possessions in my charge. In his house, I am his equal. He hasn't withheld anything from me except yourself." Now listen, couldn't he have just said, "No, God forbids such an action"? But instead he goes on to explore how awesome he is and how he's equal. And he goes, "Except for you, because you're of his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing?" This is the secondary part. The first part is, look how awesome I am. The second part is, I can't do a wicked thing and a sin against God. Now, this is interesting. He's bringing God into the equation, which tells you again that this is a man who's trying to focus on the right things. But she kept pressing him day after day. Nevertheless, he didn't listen to her. He refused to sleep with her or even be with her, i.e. be in the same room as her. Now, this is a smart guy. He knows that there's a problem. So what does he do? He starts to create boundaries. And he's like, if she's in that room, I'm in this room. If she's in this room, I'm in there. If she's in the house, I'm out in the field. Too many times we think we can play with temptation. He goes, I want you to compare this to Samson.
I thought of him now.
Okay, but let's remove the Samson running around the Philistine woman scenario. What set Samson apart?
His strength.
Okay, and that was given because he was a Nazarite. What things does a Nazarite, what is he allowed to do or not to do?
Cut his hair and
Not-
drink of the vine.
Not
Anything
allowed
of
to
the vine.
eat anything of the vine, no cut your hair. What's the third thing?
So you're not allowed to drink, eat grapes.
No, wasn't allowed to do nowhere near the
No
vine.
raisins, nothing.
Blood, something.
Do not touch anything dead.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got three things. All right, and look at the Samson story. He was skipping through a vineyard when a lion jumped up against him. He tore it in two. He runs, goes there, and he comes back, and then he sees
Honey.
honey in the carcass of a lion. And yum, yum. No, not
dead
really.
lion.
Dead lion, not great. So he grabs in and he grabs some honey.
Do you think he touched the carcass? or
Vineyard, probably. Vineyard and honey. How close can I get? Vineyard and carcass. How close can I get before? And remember the whole discussion. What tripped him up? Where's the source of your strength? Oh, if you tie up my hair with a fresh bowstring. Not if you clip my nails, if you pluck out my eyebrows. Nothing else. Play with my hair.
Go
And he
to the
uses
source.
different illustrations of the last thing he wasn't allowed to do. He was playing with not only his holiness, but also flirting with destruction, if I could say it that way. All right. This guy kind of runs away. However, one day when he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men living in the house was there indoors, she grabbed him by his... There we go. It's the cloak problem again. And said, sleep with me, but he fled. Good man. Leaving his robe in her hand, and he got himself outside. But when she saw that he had left his robe in her hand and had escaped, she called the men of the house and said to him, look at this, my husband brought in a Hebrew.
Not a Jew.
A Hebrew, or not an Israelite. This is one who had crossed over to make fools of us. He came in and wanted to sleep with me, but I yelled out loudly. When he heard me yelling like that, he left his robe with me and ran out. Here, there's a deception, and the deception has to do using a...
With the clothes. Again.
Here we go.
Sien, ons moet net die klere dra.
Can't do naked because he's back in the garden.
Yes, and here's...
It's okay, the Lord will
Elkeen
give us
bly
some
net
new
op sy eie
clothes.
klere.
She put the robe aside until his master came home. Then she said to him, this Hebrew slave who brought us came in to make a fool of me. But when I yelled out, he left his robe with me and fled outside. When his master heard what his wife said as she showed him, here's what your slave did to me, he became furious. Joseph's master took him, put him in prison, in a place where the king's prisoners were kept. Remember, Potiphar was in charge of the royal prison. Now, if I wanted to get him, we play the story in our head that we go, he took him and he gave him to the guards and they just threw him into prison. If he was that bad, why did he keep him?
Because he saw the Lord's favor on him.
And also maybe the story from his wife, he might have picked up on something else.
I was actually going to say, had he not picked up on something else? I mean, you know, really.
Right. And what are we teaching again? So he takes him away from the house and puts him in prison.
Yeah.
Let's see what he does there. But Adonai was with Joseph, showing him grace and giving him favor in the sight of the prison warden. The prison warden made Joseph supervisor of all the prisoners in the prison, so that whatever they did there, he was in charge of it. The prison warden paid no attention to anything Joseph did because Adonai was with him, and whatever he did, Adonai prospered. So again, we're probably seeing Potiphar putting him to a different place and using him there. But we're still dealing with a Joseph problem. Biggest problem of Joseph? It's all about me. Look at my fancy cloak. And second time, his cloak gets stripped away and he gets lowered into a pit. What is God doing in his life?
Trying to show him that it's not about the man.
Character.
Why?
We need to work on your character.
Why does he need him to learn that lesson? Why?
Because God is in charge, and you need to start behaving like He is in charge. It comes from Him, it's about Him, and whatever comes out of you is from Him.
There is that aspect of it as a complete nation, but why is it specific to Joseph?
Because he's
Oh,
going to
he's
do
got a
a lot of
future.
stuff. one
Yeah.
day.
He's going to be lifted up to the right hand of Pharaoh. Can you imagine Captain him running around as 17-year-old himself?
Yeah.
Oh yes, little minions, come bow down to me.
Yeah.
Pharaoh's
I had
gonna
a
have you
dream you're
killed.
out on You know, you can't lord it over, especially going to Egypt, you can't lord it
So
over them as well.
Now let's think about it. I know I'm putting you guys on the spot. If he's going to come up, and we know that everybody's going to come up because of famine, right? Okay? The process that God is going to do is he's going to do something again prophetic. He's going to provide the bread of life. Not only in Egypt, but also for the Jews or the Israelites or the Hebrew nation that's coming in. Not only for them, but also for the Gentiles around. Can he stand there and say, this is all about me? Because his job would be to reflect God. Remember, it's the same as Isaac as well. This is a Yeshua type picture. He sits on the right hand of the power. He was pulled up out of the pit, betrayed by his brothers, so that if anyone who sought life would come up to him and receive it. If Yeshua made it about himself, you would have missed God. You understand? So when we go through motions in our life, stop and ask the question, what is the lesson? Joseph had to go through this to bring him down so that he could be lifted up. Also, geographically, he needed to be moved. You're sitting in the land of Canaan, my boy, but I need you in Egypt. How are we going to get there? Oh, watch this. I'm going to use his brothers. And I'm going to teach Joseph a lesson. Get down, you're not that great. I'm going to lift you up. Boom, into Potiphar's house. You're close, my boy, but you're not where I need you. Where does he need you? Well, you see, there's a cupbearer and a baker that are going to come up in the next chapters. And we need you to get close because they have the ear of Pharaoh himself. So how do I get you into their cell? We enter Potiphar's wife.
Yeah.
And you are going to feel a little hard done by because you're not going to really know what's going on. But this is the only way I'm going to get you right there next to Pharaoh so that you're going to be able to interpret something I already do for you. There's going to be a dream. And when those things coincide, you are going to realize that if you were focusing on your brothers and betrayal, if you were focusing on your father, if you were focusing on Potiphar, if you were focusing on Potiphar's wife, you would have missed it. So what is God busy doing in your life where he's lining up those dots to get you to the point of going, here it is, this is the moment you've been prepared for.
Yeah.
Now, Joseph, are you going to make this about you, or are you going to step into my plan, my purpose, so that you can save them? God did all of that to save Jacob and his seed. Because if we lost them here, we wouldn't have a David, we wouldn't have a Yeshua, we wouldn't have salvation. You're part of a bigger plan, a bigger purpose. And God will use that. And even the misguided, evil intentions of everybody else out there, He will use it perfectly to get you into position for His name to be glorified.
Amen. So why are you here?
That is the question.
future generation.
Character building.
Andre's going to go for chocolate cake.
But it's so nice to be part of the kingdom. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever part you have, it's still the part, your little part that you need to do.
So you focus on your
You
job
just
and let
focus
Abba
on what your
pick you
job
up.
is from Him, not what everybody. And theirs is totally different. And it will provoke you to envy if they have more of what you think you want.
Yeah.
And it will do this and it will do that because you've just lost your focus.
Yeah. To walk next to each other, to build each other up, to get whatever needs to happen. Judah's line is still important. They need Joseph to preserve the line.
Imagine he wasn't there and they all would have died.
Yeah, and there we go.
People will start.
The crudes.
So, you know.
Father, we just want to thank you for this time and this family, Father. We thank you for what you're doing in our lives, Father, even if it doesn't make sense to us right now. Father, we pray that your will be done. And in the midst of all of these things, Father, I pray that you continue to mold us, change our character, Father, change our mindset, change our heart condition, whatever we need, Father, so that you may be glorified, that we may better reflect you as a kingdom of priests, Father, and also Talmidim of Yeshua. Father, I thank you for this family. I thank you for what you're doing, not only here, but in the garden route, in congregations all around the world. Father, we just thank you for the blessing of being part of what you called us to do. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.